Hey guys, Bottom Table Tyrants here. It's Leland and Josh again, and we wanted to let you know that we're going to be at Adepticon March 22nd through 26th. I'll be running RPG games on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th. You can register for those. The registration is January 8th, so it's really quick, and you got to jump on there and register quickly because it fills up usually within the same day. Adepticon is one of the biggest cons in America, and it is super popular, and you have to get on there January 8th and register. If you don't, you may not get a spot, and registration opens at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, so whatever time that is for you, adjust as needed, but you need to jump on. Some of the events, the tournaments and stuff like that, my events only have 5 seats, so they will fill up quickly. They fill up within the hour after that thing opens up, so make sure you guys jump on and register if you want to see us, the Table Tyrants, and game with us in Chicago. All right, guys, today I have a question for Josh. Do you use pregame rolls? And by pregame rolls, what I mean is I use a system where, and I'll throw this up on the screen to show you kind of the sheet that I use. I don't like to have the players roll a perception check. Like say they're walking through a cave and you stop them and say, hey, roll a perception check. Now they know something is there in most instances. I guess you could do like false checks to like throw them off, to do that, to me, you'd almost have to make them waste rolls. Like you'd have to do false rolls just as much as you do normal rolls. So what I do is I have them roll all of those surprise rolls, like if something's going to jump out and get them, if they're going to do a check against, well, I'm trying to think of like examples. If they're going to have to try and jump off a bridge because the bridge all of a sudden falls out from under them, or something like that, anything that's like a surprise roll. If like a trap's about to go off, if they need to see something in a dark cave, things like that, I have them do pre-rolls before the game. I record all those, one for each character, and I'll have like multiple. I'll have like each character roll 3 perception, 3 dexterity saves, 3 arcane checks, stuff like that. And then I have those to reference, and every time one of those is needed, I just look and say, okay, Thorgrim the Orc, for his perception check, he rolled a 12 before pregame, so that's what I'm going to use as his stat. And then I tell him, hey, Thorgrim, you see X, because he rolled well enough to beat that DC and see the thing. If he didn't, all of a sudden they're just going to be like, goblins are all over you. And they're, that way and also my players understand that they're like, hey, you didn't give us a perception check for that. I did before the game, and I'm referencing that. So it allows me to keep the surprise, if that makes sense.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that, Josh?
I would choose to be a bit more simple with it. Well, first, I get the idea of when you're saying roll a perception check and then, they know something's happening. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of okay with that. In one respect, they know, going into a cave, for example, they would know something might be there. And then the idea of like rolling and then I'm saying, okay, you just noticed this. Well, they'd have no idea if maybe they missed it or maybe that's really all they noticed was just, hey, it's, it's getting thicker. The air's getting harder to breathe down there. Mm-hmm. And maybe that is all it is. They have no idea. And I think throughout the story, throwing out random events like that kind of plays with expectations.
Okay.
So, having them pre-roll, my thing would just be definitely laying out the story of what to expect, mm-hmm. and then having the the DC for whatever kind of perception roll they're going to do. I'm kind of mumbling right there.
You're fine.
But I will say, what did you say? I wouldn't be too good on like having them pre-roll and then keeping that. I think that would add more to me, mm-hmm. for dungeon mastering.
Yeah,
mastering a game, but I do like the idea of like they roll right there, and especially if they all roll low, I know the players are typically like, crap, what did I miss? Mm-hmm. And I think that adds a little bit to the game then too. We're like, well, the DM wanted me to see something. We all rolled low. I don't know what to expect now. And I think that adds to the try to add to the game's, what do you want to say?
Just like the reality of it, or like
Yeah,
you're saying like
or like being aware, like, hey, something could be in here, and it plays off that game. So now they're not just like in a dungeon. They're like, crap, did I miss something, or
Right.
didn't we? And it just depends on the DM to it.
Okay.
So plus, I have a lot of players that roll perception check naturally, anyways. So we're going to a new room. Hi, roll perception check. So it's kind of
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
I guess that adds to it too, to where like if they always roll a perception check, fine then. So they never know whether or not did they just is it really just a book, a room that's a library, and we didn't notice anything?
Yeah.
Or did we not roll high enough when they roll perception all the time, which I guess isn't a bad thing then.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I guess I don't say it wouldn't be a counter. Something I don't like as a game master and as a player, to be honest, is when, especially if you have a large player count, when you have like 6 people walk into that room, or even 5, I guess 5, 6 players, they go into a room and you have them all rolled. You know what I'm saying? Like where it's like, well, he got an 18, she got a 16, they got a 14, he got a 1, she got a 3.
Yeah.
It's weird to me to be like, okay, guys that got a 1 and a 3, you don't see this, but there's an orc hiding behind that armor. It's like, it breaks reality because those people can't not hear that. Does that make sense? Like,
Yep.
The 1 and the 3 people are like, so there's an orc, and it's hard for them not to react, knowing, like, you literally just told the people right next to them that there's a thing. To pretend you don't know that is, to me, like almost silly and not realistic. So a lot of times, I will make one person roll, be it the worst, usually the worst person. So who has the worst perception in your party, they're going to roll to see what the party sees. And people, I guess my rationale behind that is they're the person who's not paying attention, and that them being like mumbling or like, hey, they're talking at the back of as the group filters into the room, they're like, so anyways, Bill, like they're talking to everybody, which is distracting everyone else. So even the good person who's good, but I guess like you could see how that could hurt the person who's like, hey, I have a stealth person who has a really good perception. That's not fair to like penalize me if you don't let me use my like +4, elf ears. So in some instances I will use the best and the worst. Like, I guess I kind of do it by feeling of what should we do here and how the players are reacting at the time. So there's pros and cons to that, because I don't want to. I also think it should be harder to hear things for that. The hobbit who only has a -2 to his perception or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that would happen a whole lot, but I want to take the average. Does that make sense? Like if they have a +4 guy and a -2 guy, I almost want to have them be like, okay, take the highest and the lowest ability modifiers and like average them, and that's what you get to this roll or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I would say I keep, as far as metagaming, talking outside the game.
Yep.
I don't like to do that, but in instances, there's some instances where I definitely do it.
Yeah.
And I think at the perception one I do. So there's a DC to notice something. In for perception, for example. And everyone does roll going in. And let's say you have 6 players and only 3 of them notice. I will say you 3 noticed this.
Yeah.
And I make it a point to say the other 3 do not.
Yeah.
You do not know. So now as a DM, I'm waiting to see what the 3 people that noticed it, what their actions are.
Yeah.
And I explain, like, you all 3 noticed, the people that didn't succeed, you noticed that the other 3 players, something's caught their attention.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Okay.
And go from there. So the players are aware, and I'm aware, talking outside the game, that your characters do not know this.
And what I'll do, I guess, when things go that way, I guess when I've done that, I will react. Like, say it's goblins are hiding behind some statues or something like that, and they're gonna jump out. I will react, because pretty much what happens in most instances is the players who noticed it go, I tell them that there's goblins behind those statues, and I go, well then, so now to me, it's like, so all you had to do is one of the 6 people had to roll high. That's a pretty good chance if you're rolling 6 d20s. So now they're not going to get the ambush off for the goblins, because you rolled so many dice that they have no chance of getting it, unless everyone just somehow rolls 1s and 2s. There's no way I was going to get this ambush off.
But to be fair, you're going to notice something more with 6 people going into a dungeon as opposed to just 1 player.
Yeah.
So where I do get it, where the moment you're like, you three didn't notice, but you three did. Then the players that notice, like, I tell them we noticed this. Like,
yeah. Well, so what I do is I say, before you could tell them, the goblins spring the ambush. So you three are going to be, don't get to go this round. The other three act as normal, and and then we kind of do like a surprise attack round and go from there. So I usually nix the ability, if it's an ambush, nix the ability to tell them. If they just noticed like a sword on the ground or something, hopefully it's that greedy thief, and he's like, no, I don't want to tell anybody. I'm going to take that for myself or something like that. But otherwise, most of the time they just go, I'm going to tell the rest of the party that, this is there. So,
well, because you don't want to, like what you said earlier, you want to make sure like the people that have stacked a certain stat or are working on something that, like, there's a sense of rewarding them for rolling high, for making a character being able to perceive well.
Yeah.
So to like minimize
them.
it,
or let them not even roll it. Yeah, that does suck. So I guess the answer is, it's game master's choice on how you want to run that. Those are some options. Again, that's why I like the pregame rolls, because everyone does get to roll, and that way I know. And I guess the other things I've done is I literally keep one of those little Post-it notepads, and I'll write on there what they see and pass that out. Instead of saying it in front of the whole group, I'll pass out a pad and be like, you too can look at this pad, and it'll say on there, like, you notice 3 orcs standing behind the statues, or 3 goblins behind the statues. And then and they'll say, like, you have one reaction. What is it? You can say one word or do a basic action or something like that. And it's either or. You don't get the chance to do both. So it's like they can draw their sword, or they can say one word, which I like to minimize it to one word, because then they can just say like orcs or something like that.
Yeah. And I do think whatever decision is made, to the one thing I'm always striving for is like consistency.
Yeah.
So if you have that sticky note, like rolling that, have it for any dungeon, like I would make sure I'd have to have it for every dungeon every scenario that they're going to encounter in, they have that thing happening to them.
Yeah.
Because the moment you have set up like that, and then they go into a cave where they don't have that, it loses
yeah. You're not running the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why I stay with what I said. It's just because how I've done it for so long, to where it's consistent, to where you roll a perception check, and it's a DC, and if only 2 out of the 6 people notice, I tell them, and I really haven't thought much more how to handle that after everything I've just said.
I'd say most people at the table run it just like what we're describing, is in that they're like, you guys notice this, you guys don't. And to me, it's like, as a player character, I'm like, how do you not play as if you know? Because you do know at this point. Like, you just literally told the guys across. So it's hard not to metagame that, and I get that, and most players don't react. I mean, I guess you could literally just be like, I turned my back to the statues where the orcs were turning. It's like, you could comically do that. And I would say our groups kind of would do that. Like, they would be silly with it and be like, well, then I turned my back to the orcs hiding behind the statues, because we're not that we're not afraid of our GM, but it's like, but we would role play it correctly. Other players who can't help themselves, but power game or meta game accidentally, would be like, I draw my sword just in case. And it's like, okay, well, it's because orcs are behind there, because you just heard me tell him that the other guy saw that. So
you know what? Maybe though it depends on, thinking about it now.
Yeah, it
depends on the level of what's happening. So in a case of like going through a cavern and being ambushed, maybe it doesn't really matter if metagaming, but if there's like a whole, you saw someone steal from a king that you knew is very important.
Yeah.
That's a big deal that can take out an entire kingdom. Like, the king can't trust his servant or whatever. All of a sudden, maybe that's important that only these 2 people know of what was seen.
Yeah. I can see that. Like, if there was like factions within the party itself, if like these people are loyal to the king but those guys aren't, or something like that, that could matter.
Maybe it depends on what the scenario is. Like, maybe a trap. I can understand if someone sees a trap, like, okay, yeah, you notice a trap, they would have said something the moment they saw it. Yeah. So, but you're all 6 working for a king that maybe you all like, and the problem is that you want to start throwing in some conspiracies in there. So then they have to be like, I saw this. Well, I also saw this. And then you got to play the game of secretly saying what other people saw.
What other people saw. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
So maybe it depends on the scenario.
Yeah, as usual, it depends on your players, it depends on the GM, and it depends on the scenario, definitely. So, all right, guys, that's it for today. I guess that's all we got. We love you. Bottom Table Tyrants out.
Hot dang.
All right. One more.
That's a good question. I never thought of that.